Generational healing is something that some people think, well, that's a little odd. What happened in the past is past, and you just move on, and you don't need to think about the past. But it's actually a little more common sense than that. For instance, we have inheritance of blessings that come down to us through our family line. I have 3 generations of grandmothers, and I knew them all because they lived to be a very old age. And they were all pioneer women that worked really hard. They got up early in the morning. They loved the Lord. They prayed. I'm sure that that's one of the reasons I'm standing here today, is because I had these grandmas. And they were like if you think of it in terms of streams, they were like a Mississippi River coming down into me. And all of you have some sort of river of blessing coming into you from your family. I know my wife, she might say, well, I don't know about that, because she grew up in a very dysfunctional family where her father was very, very difficult to live with. But he had this accountant mind and was kind of an investment genius and stuff. And so even though it was difficult to live with him, my wife, I see that she's got the mind of a daughter of an accountant, and the Lord has used her over and over in that way. So she has inherited some blessing. So even if it's a trickle, you have a blessing that is coming down to you through your generation. But the problem is there's this other stream that frankly is a little bit polluted. And it's difficult. And sometimes it is not any fault of our family members. For instance, think of a man who goes off to war in World War II, and he comes home, and in those days they used the word shell shock or battle fatigue. We call it PTSD. And there's a part of him that is shut down, and he's not able to communicate his love to his son. He's distant. And so the son grows up with some deficits because there was not really a father blessing there. And so the son kind of parents by example, and he didn't have much of an example, and so he raises his sons with some distance, some coolness, not able to tell them that they love him. We had a man who came to us from the West Coast for prayer, for 3 days of prayer. Hadn't slept in 6 years. Now, obviously, he had slept a little bit or he'd be dead, okay? But he had, for the most part, he had not slept in 6 years. His health had deteriorated. He had been a physical fitness expert at that. Before that, he had lost his job. He had gone to psychiatrists. He had gone to medical doctors. They could not pinpoint what was wrong with him. He was on medication, but it was not helping. And so it was kind of a desperation, last resort. He came for prayer. The first 2 days, not much happened, and he was discouraged. But then we had a word of knowledge that there was something to do with war in his family. And he had these father and a grandfather that were war heroes. And he had really idolized them, had all their uniforms and had them set up with all their medals and all their weapons and had kind of like a little shrine to them. So you have to be careful here. This is touchy because you're dealing with people who are heroes, that they have done their duty, they've stood up, they've put their life on the line, and they've done what is right. But the problem with being a war hero is that oftentimes you're called to do something that no human being should ever have to do. And you're in an environment that is not conducive to spiritual growth, but it's conducive to destruction. And so we found this came to us, and so we prayed into it, and there was a great manifestation thing, something that we had not expected at all. And within a half an hour, he was free. But you know, when you haven't slept in 6 years, it's hard to believe that can be dealt with in a half an hour. Okay? And so and maybe not. We'll see. And so the next day he came back, and he said, I slept through the night for the first time, all the way through, for the first time in 6 years. And then we got a letter from him a year later, and he said, I've been sleeping through the night consistently every night for the past year. I'm off medication. I have my health back. I've got a new job that I love. The Lord has given my life back to me. But what we had was a generational thing that came down through war, through his ancestors, that had a demonic component that was attached to it.